Hi, Steph Hogan. How are you?
I'm great. So happy to be here, Jennifer.
Y'all, I've known Steph for, we're going to age ourselves here, but like 10 years at this point,
Yeah.
right? It was my
Yes.
first professional contract post undergrad. I don't know what it was it for
Yeah.
you? Yeah,
Yeah. Because
technically.
I had just graduated like 2 months prior.
Yeah, same. We did a production of Spring Awakening at the Crown Uptown Dinner Theater in Wichita, Kansas with some of the most incredible people.
We did. Wow. The people were absolutely insane. And you
Yeah,
never would have thought it in that tiny little,
yeah.
sweet little love box of a dinner theater.
Yeah, they came out of there. I mean, people are like swinging around doing all sorts of wild things. It's just really, you never would have known. Anyway, hi.
Yeah. Hi.
For anybody who's listening, who are you today?
Okay. Uh, Today I am an actress, performer, singer. I am an engaged woman. That's a
Yes,
big
you
part of
are.
my identity right now, I'd say.
Yes, yes.
Planning weddings and whatnot. Well, planning one wedding, mine. And
Multiple what you're just like, I'm planning mine and I'm planning six others, and this is a side
can
hustle
you
now. Yeah.
I would never, ever, ever do that. I have a planner because I am not good at any of this stuff. But yeah, that's who yeah. And I am a person who's really excited to talk to you, and I'm loving living in my fabulous little shoebox of an apartment on the Upper East Side.
Amazing. Yeah, y'all, I have Steph here today because Steph has been creating in many capacities, short film specifically, right? It's short film specifically. And
Mhm.
yeah, keep talking. Interrupt me, please.
No, mostly I would say we just
Yeah,
did a feature film like a little over a year ago, but that
yeah.
was the first big endeavor that we kind of stepped into with this group of artists that we've all been working with for the past like 4 years.
Yeah, and then also running through the whole entire, like, film circuit situation,
Yes.
which is really what I think the crux of this episode is going to hopefully be about. But before we get to the circuit, you have to get to the making. So talk to me about, A, what made you decide to start creating in this kind of capacity? And B, how did you create your, like, group of people with whom you are creating?
So I had always had ideas of films and things that I wanted to make and create, but I'm more of a dreamer. I'm it's harder for me to put pen to paper.
Yeah.
And I watch a lot of like TV and movies as I think a lot of us do. And so when you see as much stuff as, you're constantly like consuming all of that, you get an idea about what you like and what you think would interest you and things that you wish that you could
Yeah.
see, whether it's TV or theater. But for me, it was kind of leaning more towards like movies, or like limited series because I was
Mhm.
really into that as well. Where it really like came down to it was I met my now fiance. We were working with a manager
Okay.
who will remain nameless, but it was not like a healthy. She and her. It was just not a good. It was not a very healthy. It was more of like an abusive atmosphere, and
Mhm.
we were just getting frustrated working with her. We were getting frustrated by our, auditions or lack thereof, or just how she would speak to us. And we were like, I think we want to create something of our own. And so my
Were you
fiance
both
thought,
in with this manager before you had even met
yeah,
with each other? Or and
no,
okay,
no. So we met, he was with her,
got it.
and I had just done like a musical theater showcase, and I was like, and I had met with a lot of agents, but no one was really like pulling the trigger on signing me. They're like, "You're great, you're great, you're great, but we'll get back to you. Like, hit us back up in a couple
Yeah.
months." And I was like, "I just want like a new agent. I want an agent. I want an agent." And I had started dating him, and he was with this manager, and like she did have a few people under her belt who were like doing big stuff. And I was like, "Hey, can you like hook me up with her?" And he warned me. He was like, "Okay." He's like, "She's crazy. She's really crazy. Not just normal manager agent crazy. She's insane." And I was like, I can handle that." And he was like, "Okay,
Yeah,
you're saying to do this, so I'm going to do it." And I was
yeah.
like, "All right, great." Signed on with her. Like, let me put it this way. When we ended up doing like our own like first short film that he wrote and that his friend directed, she made them like pay us, me and like the other people in the class we were using, like, or in the manager group that we were using, she made them pay us so that she could get like 20%.
Wow. versus just like,
And
here's my project, here's the 20% from that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it was like it, and I do believe that artists should be paid, but it was like the first thing we'd ever done, like short film wise or TV film wise. It
Yeah.
was like the first really thing that I was kind of like, oh, I'm down to just do this for fun, for experience. Like
Mhm.
I'm okay with it. But she made it this huge issue and she was so offended that she wasn't asked to be involved in all this stuff. She's
Yeah.
like, well, why didn't you even ask me to like produce or like do anything? And we're like, well, we kind of just wanted to like see if we could do it on our own. And
Yeah.
it was like a whole like controlling aspect. Anyways, besides the point. So basically, my fiance Bobby wanted to write something, and he wrote something, and I was in it, and I was like, "This is fun." I didn't really like my character though. I wasn't super thrilled with it. I was
Yeah.
like, I feel like there's more that I want to get out of this. And he's like, "Oh, you should write something yourself." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I think I'm gonna write something
Wow.
myself."
Okay.
Because it was a great experience, but it felt very a little surface. We're
Okay.
all just testing the waters. He wanted to write something on drug addiction that was specifically geared toward things and like in his life and his family that he's dealt with, which I thought was amazing. And like it was a really great like representation. And we learned so much. And then I had been kind of grappling with this idea for like a year. I'd been thinking about it. I was like, I don't know what I want to do with it, but I want to create something like visual about it, street harassment. So like when I was like, first moved to New York City and like, living in certain areas and, you're walking to the subway, you're walking to this wherever you're going and, you get catcalled,
Yeah.
you get like harassed. Sometimes it's really aggressive. We've all experienced that.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone has experienced that. And there
Mhm.
was like a couple of times that it got me so upset and riled up. I was like, "Oh my god, like what would happen if it was like a buildup, like one day, like it was just one right after the other, and you're not in the frame or you're in like a really bad like state of mind to deal with
Yeah.
it. What would you do? What would
Yeah.
you like? How I don't know how I would react because I can be a very reactionary. I can be impulsive when I'm in a state like that, as I think most artists can be.
Mhm.
And so something happened to me. I was living in Harlem and I was going for a walk and I was walking like on the sidewalk and these two guys were walking toward me and I was walking towards them. And I was like, oh, there's two of them. Okay, there's not that much and there's not much room on the sidewalk. I'm gonna try and like move around them or whatever. And so I took a step to the right and one of them took a step to like their left to like block me. Took a step to my left and they like took a step to like block me again. And I was getting closer and closer and they weren't really like
Mm.
moving or letting me go. And I got really scared because it was just me. There wasn't many people around. It was like getting dark out. And I was like, oh my God, okay, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Like, what am I gonna do? What's gonna happen? And then as I'm like I was about to be like, what are you doing? He like turns away and just starts like laughing in my face. And I was like, wow, go fuck yourself. And
Mhm.
I went home and I like,
Wrote this thing.
yeah, I started writing.
Amazing. And so then you
Yeah.
created this piece, which is called
It's called Retract. And it's basically that premise of, here's a woman who's kind of like fresh out of a relationship. She's in that fragile state of mind when you're like just out of a relationship and you're far enough away from the relationship to know that like it wasn't the right one,
Mhm.
but you're not quite far enough away from it to be like, I'm good and everything's amazing. But it
Yeah.
maybe is one of those first days that you're like, oh, the sun is out. I can appreciate. I'm feeling grateful again. I'm feeling like not everything is doom and gloom. I'm feeling like I can
Yeah.
fall in love again. I'm feeling like I can have hope again. Like it's not always going to be it. So it's like it's one of those first days that she feels like that. And it's basically just a steady stream of like she's going throughout her day and she keeps on like running into street harassers. And then like the last guy, I'll say what happens because I don't think that I mean I can
You
have
don't
you
know.
watch it.
I mean,
Okay,
yeah.
well, it's just kind of like a buildup of stuff throughout the day and it gets really intense into a head and yeah, and she makes a decision that is probably out of character with her normally. And
Amazing.
it's impactful. I think it's pretty strong. It's like I said, it was the first thing I ever wrote.
Yeah.
But we decided we wanted to go forward and like put it into some circuits. I hired a female director who had actually done a lot, Alex Speed, and I went to college with her, and she wanted to get into more directing, and I reached out to her to direct this because I really wanted a female director on it, someone who like understood.
Mhm.
And, you know, she was the one who was like, "Well, you gotta submit this to festivals. Like you have to put this out there. Like it's actually like something maybe could go forward, or you could just get more interest, or you can just, garner more people who are interested in working with you."
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So if you want to get into like the nitty gritty of this, like, it's not even that nitty gritty, it's pretty easy. But there's a website called filmfreeway.com. And
Mhm.
if you go on there, there's a list of like, I mean, it's every film festival like in the world. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and they have little bios. They have like, oh, this is a gold star. And it all depends on what your goal is. Like, if your goal is just to accrue festival nominations or, getting into festivals and like IMDb credits, then you want to probably submit to like everything that they have out there. And now every submission costs money. So, like, when you're
Mhm.
raising a budget and all that stuff, which I'm sure you've talked to other people about, that is a part of it. That's a big part of it.
Mhm.
Because I think we spent something like almost for that one. I think we spent something like close to $1,000 on submissions.
We haven't really dove into this in any other episode. When we had
Okay.
Diana and Akila on here, they also talked about the forum that you were talking about.
Hmm.
And we had Lauren talk about her circulation with her film as well. Like we've had certain episodes beforehand. If y'all want to check them out, go for it. But we haven't really gone into the details of film festival submission, right? So for you
Mm,
in this first round of being like, okay, cool, let's take the leap of taking this piece that we've created and now we're on this website and it has every single possible festival listed in the entire world.
right.
That can be incredibly overwhelming. A, not having done this beforehand. B, knowing that things cost money. And C, knowing that it takes time, effort, energy, yada, yada. When you get onto the site, what was your process the first time around?
My process the first time around was I was looking for festivals that had been around for a
Okay.
while. Um,
Did you have
because
like a
those
list for yourself of like, this is the criteria I wanted it to hit before I submitted?
I I mean, I definitely went in because I'd never really seen this website before.
Hmm.
So I'd gone in being like, I know that there are like women specific festivals.
Hmm.
So like I went in kind of being like, well, I want to hit like the women specific festivals.
Great.
And then there's like, there's some great ones out there. There's some brand new ones too that, because you can see how long that they have been you can see how long that they have been a festival for.
Okay.
And, the more years they've done it, sometimes it's like the more legitimate they are.
Yeah.
And you can also, I know a big thing that I wanted to do also was submit myself for like best actress categories as well,
Hmm.
because it's like just me. There's a lot of other actors in it, but like it's just like I'm in every single scene basically.
Well,
And
when you
I'm just
submit, do you
Mhm.
submit in category too? So it's not just this is my film. It's like I'm submitting my film, I'm submitting the director, and I'm submitting the actor.
So you can. Yeah. And it
Okay.
depends because each festival is different. You can submit like I'm trying to think. Like there are certain larger festivals that you can submit. It's just like narrative short, narrative feature, documentary, best actress,
Hmm.
best director, best cinematography. The list goes on, like best sound design,
Hmm.
like it's really almost like academic. It reminds you of like the Oscars, like all of those categories are
Hmm.
in a lot of these festivals.
Right.
And then there are some festivals that I would say, I mean, it just depends. There are some festivals that have the categories where it's like best thriller short, best comedic short, best woman's short, best
Hmm.
LGBTQ short,
Right.
best, it goes on and on and on. And so you kind of have to pick and choose. You have to look at the festival and be like, oh, I think this festival is cool. And sometimes it's nice to pick festivals that are, well, we'll get into that in a second. But you have to look at the festival and think, this seems like a cool festival. I would love it if it was, if I was chosen, it would be cool to go. And I feel like it would be a great accolade for this film. Now, there is a thing that's like, oh, the world premiere. Oh, the Northeast premiere. Oh, the South premiere, the European premiere, the London premiere. So, like, if you have a short film and you submit it to like all of these New York city festivals because you're like, I want to go to a festival in New York because I live in New York and it's going to be so cool and awesome. Maybe I'll meet someone
Mhm.
because the whole goal is to like get it distributed. You know,
Mhm.
that's for short films, that's kind of hard. Maybe for a short film, I want to meet someone who wants to make this into what I think it could be, which is a
Mhm.
feature film or a series
Yeah.
or
Or just even
whatever.
like, I love your work, let's collaborate on the next thing and just
Exactly,
exactly. Mhm.
exactly. And but I would say that most people are going to, like, further whatever their project is.
Mhm.
Um, and so great. Oh, you get into 3, like, really cool New York City festivals. That's amazing. You have to ask them because chances are if they're really good and they're really cool and they're in New York City, they're gonna want you to premiere that your film at only their festival. So, for example, if like you get into the New York, the New York Film Festival, and you also get into like Soho International Film Festival, and you also get into just like another great like New York City Film Festival, all 3 of them, you're not going to be able to go to all 3 or Tribeca. I mean, you probably go to Tribeca,
Yeah.
but you're not going to be able to go to all 3. You have to choose which one if they're looking at you to be the world premiere because the larger festivals, they want to be the first one. They
Will
want to
they
be because
ask
it's
you that outright, or is that part of
mhm.
your submission of like, "Hey, I'm submitting this because I want you to be the place through
So
which I."
sometimes so sometimes for larger ones, they will email you being like, "Hey, you've made it to the semifinals. Hey, you've made it to the quarterfinals. We really like love this film. We think it would be a great addition to our, to our festival lineup. Is there any other information you can give us? We'd like to know this, we'd like to know that. We just want to let you know we're very curious about looking at this for like the world premiere."
Mhm.
And then after a while they'll be like, you are accepted, and then you either have to say like yes or no depending on the other festivals that you've gone in the same region. If they're like, we're looking at it for the world premiere, oh, we're looking at it for the world premiere too,
Got it.
and then you kind of have to decide because
And I
you
would
can't
imagine you
do
can't,
both.
so you're world premiering, say, like, from New York. That doesn't mean that it's the world premiere generally because you can have a quote unquote world premiere from LA, or is it like a world premiere,
No,
period?
it's the world
Got it.
premiere period,
Got it.
because then if you premiere in LA, that's the LA premiere or the
Got it.
California premiere.
Okay.
Because like the film that we did, we went to the Brooklyn Film Festival, which was awesome. It was so much fun. And then that was the world
World
premiere.
premiere.
That was the
Mhm.
world/New York premiere. And we had gotten into like another festival that was also really great, but we chose to go to this one because we thought it was better.
Got it.
And now, yeah, exactly. So
Cool.
you
So
kind of have to
dialing
pick
it
and choose.
back, when you were going through this whole massive list, how do you make your decisions when there's hundreds upon hundreds of festivals and they all cost money, is the first part.
I would say first you want to start out with probably a few cheaper online festivals, which
Okay.
means like they're just online,
What does cheaper mean?
$10 to
Cool.
submit. Yeah. Or like 20, $30, $40 at the most if you're like submitting for all these categories.
And do you pay
And
per category or you pay for your film?
you pay per category.
Got it.
So it's like at the end you like check out and it's like $40 because you've done like the submission and then the add-ons of all the other categories.
Got it.
I would say like start with that because the online are less competitive and usually there's a great like monthly online competitions, and that's really great because you can get nominations or awards. And the cool thing about nominations and awards is no matter where they are, they show up on IMDb,
Mhm.
which is a great get. Because if you like click on someone's name or someone's searching you and you go on IMDb and they're like, oh, 5, 6 awards, oh, nominations, oh, that's so cool. And they're like, yeah, they're these like, they're smaller, like online or monthly festivals. I mean, they still definitely mean something, but it's going to be a little bit less competitive than an annual or a semi-annual festival.
That's a really
But
helpful
it's
tool.
something to yeah, it's something that like it's a confidence boost. It makes you look really good.
Yeah.
And then I would say like apply to some local festivals that you can go in person and like celebrate and enjoy your success and maybe meet some cool people. Cuz some people are like, "Well, why do you even go to festivals? Like what's the point of going to a festival like if you're not, you know, what's the point?" I'm like, "It's to make connections. It's to meet people." That is the number one thing. Oh god, do I hate networking? But like it's fun. It's fun to go to a
Yeah.
festival and have other people see your work and come up to you afterwards and be like, "That was awesome. Here's my card."
Yeah.
you
And
know?
also, I'd imagine like you are also, you're supporting other artists who are doing the same kind of thing, right? So
Exactly.
and expanding the way in which you can see the way you want to then continue making your art and I'll help support other people making their. I feel like it really is, networking gets such a bad rap. And don't get me wrong, it really feels really icky often. But when it is coming from a place of curiosity and open-mindedness and
Mhm.
support and
Yeah.
community, which really, I mean, when push comes to shove, that is what a festival is, right? You have many
Yeah,
different individuals and groups of people who then all come together as a community to celebrate art, like that is, if we're
exactly.
really getting down to the nitty gritty of what a festival could be, that is the beauty of it. So what a wonderful gift you're giving yourself to then support in a community space, I would imagine.
It really is. It really is, and it really can be. You also just learn a lot. Yeah, like you said, because when one of our first festivals we went to, it was my, short film, and I saw, like, famous people and other people's short films, and I was like, "Oh, interesting," and then you start to realize, oh, if you can get someone who's a little bit well known and
Mhm.
you put them in a short film or your, like, micro budget, feature film or whatever, there's a bigger chance that it'll get chosen, there's a bigger chance it'll get distribution. You just learn, and you also get to see, yes, you get to support like other artists, which is like amazing and so wonderful. And it's just so nice to be with people who understand
Yeah.
what we've all been through.
Mhm.
And you also get to see how you like measure up
Mm.
because that was like a big, we're all our own worst critics. We
Yeah.
are all like horrible. I mean, we're all so scared to like put our, like, hearts out
Yeah.
there. It's
It's a
like, "It's
baby.
messy and it's gross, don't look at it,
Yeah.
don't look. Don't touch it, but love it, but don't
Yeah.
touch it."
But don't look me in
And
the eyes. Right.
but don't look
Exactly.
me in
Yeah.
the eye, but
Yeah.
love it, I don't know. And when you get to see, especially for a short film, because you see them in blocks, like, it'll be like an hour and a half or a 2-hour block, and you'll see, like, 15 or no, that's a
Yeah.
lot. You'll see, like, 7 short films or whatever. You get to see how it, like, stands up against them. You get to see, like, oh my gosh, it's really not that bad. Oh, oh, good, good, good. Okay, great. Oh, okay.
Well,
Because
I mean,
sometimes
you have to remember, right? Like if we're making the quote unquote assumption that all these festivals are really competitive to get into, the fact that you've
right,
been accepted into said festival, that they have curated accordingly, I think it's
right.
akin to when you get an audition and people are like, oh, I didn't book it. It's like, well, the fact
Ex
that you simply got an
exactly.
audition, you've quote unquote beaten out. I hate that phrasing, but like you've gotten this appointment over hundreds of other people who submitted. That in and of
Right,
itself is a huge win. And
right.
remembering that even just simply being in that festival, getting accepted to that festival, showing up to this space shows that you
Someone
are
thought that
exactly.
you were worthy of
Exactly.
whatever this is.
Exactly.
Someone thought that you were like, "Mwah, chef's kiss," and,
Yeah.
like, and here you
Yeah.
are, and you deserve to be here. But,
Yeah.
it is that, like, I feel like that's such an artist way of thinking. You're like, "I'm the best and I'm the worst."
Oh,
And,
absolutely. It keeps you humble and it also keeps you motivated. And also, yeah, compare leads to despair
absolutely,
because like you're sitting there and if you're looking at this next
totally,
person being like, well, mine wasn't as great or how do I measure up? I mean, it also,
totally.
I mean, I think you just have to remember that you are still there. Like,
Right.
you know?
Absolutely, like, I remember we also filmed a pilot in 2020, which was wild
Wow.
because it was August 2020, so it was like, "Whoa."
Hmm.
But, and we submitted it to a bunch of places, and we got into this, like, it's called, like, Katra Film Festival, and it's like a mid-level festival. They've been around for, like, almost 10 years. And some of the festivals, and you can see it on the website, are, like, Academy Award qualifying, which is, like, really cool, you know? This was not one of those, but it was a really cool festival because it was screening at AMC Times Square. And we were like,
Wow.
"Oh my god, like, what? We get to go to AMC Times Square, take pictures in front of a step and repeat,
Yeah.
meet some cool people, see some awesome." And one of the short films was so funny. It was so good and it was so simple. It was about this guy and girl who go to an Airbnb, like their boyfriend, girlfriend, go to an Airbnb on vacation. And all she's obsessed with doing is taking pictures that she's seen on Instagram,
Okay.
and he has to just, like, go along with it,
Yeah.
and it's really funny because there's the whole juxtaposition of the contrast of what she thinks the picture is gonna look like, and then what it actually
Yeah.
ends up looking like, and it was so funny
And
because
relatable. Yeah.
it was so relatable, and it was just his and it was so simple. It was, like,
Mhm.
7 minutes. It was just like, oh, I thought it was great. It was
Yeah.
hysterical.
I love
And it was
that.
just yeah, it was great. It was just so cool to, like, see everything on the big screen, you know what I
Oh,
mean? I was like
completely.
like a real movie.
Completely. I know we keep going off of this. I'm going to keep coming back to it until I get through this whole process. But you're on there. You've decided which ones to submit to. You recommend doing the
Yes.
online ones first. Great.
I
Once
recommend
you,
doing the online ones first, and
yeah.
then I would say do ones that are like, you can visit in person because like I
Okay.
said, that's fun to do. And then maybe ones that are like places you want to go. I mean, you don't have
Okay.
to go to all of them either. You do not at all. Or, ones that you think are a little bit bigger but more regional, like not in like LA or New York. Um,
Do you
I
think
mean,
it's
like
helpful to try to hit different regions in that respect so that you
I
aren't
would
known as just the East Coast person? You're known as like, oh, we've gone around the country or we've gone around the globe, or is that just as per subjective idea of how you want your film to be received?
I would say it is good to submit to a lot of different regions just so that everyone in a lot of different regions can see your work
Yeah.
because you never know when you're gonna meet someone and also it gives you more of a chance because oh this is the Southeast premiere. It's that whole
Mhm.
thing again where they're the first to get it.
Yeah.
And I would say that like the films that have just like, oh, the Portland like film festival, the Boston Film Festival, the Cincinnati Film
Yeah.
Festival, the ones that are just like the city names with like film festival or even like internet or like Portland International Film Festival or something like that.
Mhm.
The ones with the big city names are going to be like the better ones because it's
Okay.
like this is their film festival in this city
Got
and
it.
like this is going to draw probably more people in. And then I would say then you can start to look at more niche festivals. Like if you have a horror film, oh, the Austin Horror Film International,
Mhm.
whatever. Oh, I have this woman's film. Oh, I have this LGBTQ film. There
Yeah.
was an LGBTQ short film that we helped produce.
Mhm.
Not a lot of the people were in it, but like our team kind of like helped produce it and put it on. And it got into all of these really cool LGBTQ film festivals, like all over
Amazing.
the world, which was
Wow.
really like they went to Australia, they went to
Wow.
Texas was a big one, like LA. It was really great. I mean,
Wow.
it's a very very good short film.
So if you
Um,
had $1,000, which is like what you were saying you had for this, how many did you
mhm.
end up submitting to? I mean, I know this is a strange and personal question, but how many do you think you submitted to, and how many do you think you got accepted to? Just to put this in perspective.
Like at the end of everything,
Yeah.
and maybe 1,000 was kind of steep, I said, but maybe not. I think I probably submitted to like 60 or 70.
Okay.
And then I think I ended up getting in 20,
That's a good
25.
ratio.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. But we did submit to a lot of like, lower level ones because we wanted to get that.
Yeah. But I think it's helpful for people to hear the I don't mean it as like a rejection, but the fact that it is,
No,
but it is about spreading a wide net, but also being
absolutely.
specific while you're doing it so that you're
Oh,
not
yeah.
just, throwing paint at a wall
Oh, yeah.
willy-nilly, but at the
Yeah.
same time there is some sort of like, okay, let's reach for this, or like this
Yeah.
one seems a little bit more tangible. It's kind of like I just remember this is totally triggering for myself, but like I remember when I was applying to undergrads and I had like my safeties and
Yeah.
my reaches and my like whatever. And I mean, I applied to 18 schools like a crazy person, and that was wrong.
Right.
But just like you have all of these things and the places that you think you can get into, or the ones that you can, or the ones that you're like, this isn't, we might as well try. Like I
Yeah.
think there's some strategy to that I'm
Yeah.
hearing.
Yeah, totally. But I also know people that, they've created a product and they've created this like piece and they're so damn proud of it. And they're like, I'm not accepting anything less than like this level of festival.
Hmm.
So all of their festival submissions they'll apply to like 50, like really stellar or like 20, like like the top of the top. And then they'll get into like two.
Yeah, it's strategy, but it's also understanding that you, in many respects, are in control of that choice for yourself. It's just a matter of getting
Hmm.
very clear about your goal with it, right? Is it
Hmm.
like, let's get
Yeah.
accolades and let's get this noticed? Or is it, let's just get into the quote unquote best festivals that exist to show this level of, calibration? Or,
Yeah.
where do we want the eyes on the piece, and what
Right.
communities do we want to be a part of, and how do we want to
Right.
showcase this?
Right. Yeah. And I would say the whole like, yeah, getting accolades, getting nominations, getting awards and all that stuff. It's not only is it good for like, ooh, IMDb, ooh, all this stuff, but like if you are like, which is what we were kind of doing until like, the pandemic, but we still kind of have done some stuff. We were trying to garner like interest in people wanting to bring their scripts to us and
Hmm.
be like, oh, look at all of their award, look at what they've done, look at all the places they've been, we're trying to like build ourselves up in this way that's like, yeah, if you bring your script to us, like we will get it done. We will put it on. We will make this
Yeah.
piece and project together, and it's going to go to festivals and it will
Yeah.
win stuff. Like it will.
And
Absolutely.
you say we. So do you have a production company? Is it a team that you use all the time? How does the we and who is the we and how is it working?
Totally. It's called East End Productions
Mhm.
.net. Um, and I would say mostly it's me and Bobby, but also we have some like producing partners, like Alex Spieth, who is a director for us quite often. She doesn't direct everything, but she directs like a lot of the stuff that
Mhm.
we've done. She's phenomenal. Our friend like Daniel Boyd, he's a producer. Our friend Matt Leibowitz is like the most incredible sound designer I think I've ever. I've used only one other sound designer, and my God, sound is so important.
Yeah. Yep.
If it's not great, it's horrible.
Yeah.
If it's not
Yep.
like perfect, it's horrible. And so it's just people that we've used, like that we've been in contact with, that we've like used. And I help produce. Bobby's a really my fiance is an excellent producer. He's produced on a lot more things as well. Um, and we just kind of like have like a rotating cast of like people that are you available? Oh, can you recommend someone? Oh, great. Are you available? Great. Then come on. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Because we just
Mhm.
like to hire people that we've worked with before who are really reliable and wonderful.
Yeah.
And, if they're not available, because of course they're in demand because they're amazing, then they'll always like refer us to someone else, and then they get added onto the fray
Yeah.
because that's what this business is.
Yeah. When you are now creating with said group of people, or
Mhm.
when you're getting a script that you're considering, what is the criteria you are looking for with said piece? Is it, okay, this seems really producible and therefore marketable? Is it, oh, I resonate with this and I want to act in it? Or is it, I think this is a really wonderful proof of concept that then we would hopefully be able to bring on more people to then create it into a longer piece? What is the thing that's drawing you at this current juncture in time?
I mean, I wish I could say it was more artistically driven and it was more, but honestly, it would have to be probably like, finances to back it. I
Mm,
mean, we have to think it is good. Like I definitely, and that is the main reason that like most of the people that have written stuff have been like within this little company that we've
yeah.
created. It's because we were like, okay, I know we have like a little bit of cash. We've got this. Okay, you've got a little bit, they were people who are able to like bring into this. And now it's like if someone from the outside were to come and be like, I have this amazing script, and it's only ever happened like once or twice, like in the past 4 years. Like I have this amazing script and I do have like the capital to like back it up. And like we can help a little bit with that in raising some funds, but it's so hard. It's so hard right now. It's just that's kind of the like main. I mean, because it takes a lot. It's like almost $1,000 a page when you come down to it to create a piece. It can be.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like the main thing. But if like that was no issue, if that like wasn't a problem, and I could sit down and like, go through it. I mean, yeah, something where like someone's really struggling with something of like that's what I like to see. I like to see someone like really like they're struggling with something internally about themselves or about their family or about society, and how do they deal with it in a realistic way.
Mhm.
Maybe there's some like, I would love to see some like some funny, interesting twists on, I don't know, like scenes or relationships as
Yeah.
well. But like something that is like dealing with something that we all deal with like day to day, but maybe in just like a different way.
Yeah. Doubling back to Festival Land again, because I'm
Hmm.
realizing I didn't ask this. I've heard and I recognize that there are multiple categories for time and time constraints. What have you
Hmm.
found to be the sweet spot? And I would imagine as you're submitting or looking on these things, it's like, we don't accept things that are longer than this, or actually these are longer. Like, what is that?
Hmm. It all depends. I mean, for short films, I would say like 15 minutes or less. Ideally, like 7 minutes, like under 10, like
Mhm.
because our attention span is so small. Um, that and I've noticed like those are the ones that get the most traction and they get like passed around faster because they're shorter.
Yeah.
But if it's really good and it's so like if it's well done and it's something that you can tell like was like taken a lot of care and time and effort, it can be like 25 minutes. It's
Yeah.
okay. It's, if you have something that you're like super passionate about and you're like, I cannot cut this down. There's
Yeah.
no way. It's just not going to make any sense. Who fucking cares? Just make it 25 minutes. It's going to be amazing. It's going to get into a million festivals and it's going to be wonderful. But I would say like
But also
if I could like write something down myself and have it be wonderful, I'd have it be like 7 minutes.
got it. Got it. When you've submitted, what is the usual like callback process? So for every festival, I imagine it's totally different.
This
Some are
is
like,
good.
no, thank you. Don't come ever here again. And then some people are like, cool, we'll let you know in 7 months. Like, what is the turnaround and how many rounds do you have to go through? What is the range of that?
Okay. So when you are on this website, you can see like when the deadline is, but usually like I would say go for the ones that have the early bird deadlines. So
Okay.
you're like one of the first people to get in to this festival
Are a
because
lot of
it's
these just
cheaper.
rolling? Like they just happen to happen throughout the
Yeah, they're
year?
just
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. I mean, one of them just happened like a couple months ago. They're not going to be open for submissions until like the
Spring.
beginning of the new year or like the end of
Okay.
this year. But you can see it. It says early bird or like early VIP access. Like click on those because those are cheaper. The earlier you get into the festival, the cheaper it is, which is
Wow.
incredible. And then it gets like, okay, now it's just the regular early deadline. Oh, now it's just the regular deadline. Oh, now it's the late deadline. Now it's the extended late deadline. And of course, like the later, yeah, sometimes there's like four of them. It's kind of
Wow.
crazy. They want you to
Yeah.
submit to their thing. And but the later it gets, the more expensive it gets.
Okay. And
And
then
that you can see on their like because after you submitted to everything, there'll be this like little Excel sheet, like grid like thing where it shows you all the festivals that you've submitted to, and it'll tell you when you'll find out. And
wow.
it'll give you like a little like green check if you like got in, or like a little like orange like check if you like didn't get in, or if
And do you
you
get individualized emails from each of these festivals telling you where you are in the process or a piece out?
um it depends on how big the festival is. If it's a bigger festival, they will be like, "Hey, you're in the semifinals."
Mhm.
If it's not as big of a festival, it's more of like a mid or like smaller festival, you'll just get an email saying, "Hey, your status has changed
Oh,
on Film Freeway, and you have to sign into Film Freeway and see what happened."
I mean, it's definitely worth looking at Film Freeway's website to just
Yeah,
see the different, I guess, commissions that might be taken or entry fees or, um, you know, I guess like the sliding scale of things depending on what you're doing. But
right.
I feel like it's just a quick Google and search of browsing
Yeah,
the site to see what's even possible is like a
totally.
necessity.
And there's reviews on there too. So like sometimes you're not sure, oh, should I submit to this festival? It seems cool. And you'll see reviews that are like, this was super awesome. I met a lot of people. They have a great opening night party. Because some
Yeah.
of these places, like you will submit your film. Okay, you'll get into this festival, right? And then you don't know when your film is going to be playing
Hmm.
for a little while. And then you're like, oh, my film is playing on like the fourth night of the festival, or like the fourth like morning, or the fourth midday, whatever, because it's all day
Yeah.
sometimes. And then you're like, but the opening night party that I can go to is like happening tomorrow and I want to go, and that'll be really fun. And that's where you can like meet people. And then sometimes there's like an ending festival party where
Yeah.
they'll do awards. It just depends because they will let you know. And it's fun to go to those ones sometimes because it just
Yeah.
makes you feel like
Yeah.
you're a
You
part
earned
of
it.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Well, as we wind down our time, is there anything that you feel that it is important to know about this part of the process that we did not talk about? Or is there something that you wish you knew before you started going down this process for yourself that you would love to share with somebody as they are embarking on this journey?
when you are making a budget for a short film or a film or whatever, make sure you set aside money for film submissions, because that wasn't something that I thought about originally. And I thought about it really late. And then we ended up having to go out of pocket for a lot of them.
Okay.
That is a big one. And I would say, honestly, like submit to film festivals that you actually want to go to. I've been to quite a few, but I have gotten into some cool festivals that I wasn't like able to go to because of like finances or like work or whatever's going on in my life. You can't know exactly when it's going to be and what night
Yeah.
your film is playing, but if you can, like set aside money even for like travel or for like, to tide you over if you want to definitely like I would say go to as many festivals as you can because it's really fun and you never know who you're going to run into or
Yeah.
who you're going to meet and it just makes you feel this like warm fuzzy sense of like community and artistry and it inspires you to like move forward and do more things and if you're thinking about writing anything or doing something, just do it and give yourself a deadline and stick to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so important just because we forget that not money is always available from somewhere, but it's just to be preemptive about it so it doesn't feel like you're happening on the back end and you're like, "But I could
Right.
have."
Well, you can
Mhm.
be an artist and, like, do all this stuff if you're prepared,
Yeah.
like, if you're financially prepared, which is, like, I feel like the biggest issue sometimes in, like, this artist world, you're like, you don't have to be a starving artist, you can be okay. You can be a satiant,
Yeah. Yeah.
artist.
And I guess I just wanna ask you for yourself, as you're navigating this shift from, I knew you in musical theater land, and it's not like you've
Mhm.
left that, but as you're navigating this
Yeah.
shift for yourself, how are you finding that on the emotional end of it, the balancing part of it or, surrounding yourself with different types of artists who are more niche in what they're doing? How has that been for you?
Oh my god, I've loved it, honestly. I love
Yeah.
like, being on set it's totally different than being on stage, it's super different, but I love it because it's like all the stuff that we love in rehearsals,
Mm.
because I feel like when the final product or I hate saying that, but you know what I mean, when
Yeah.
it's, like, opening night, everything is like, "Ah!" and, like, I love that too, and it's faster, louder, funnier. And for camera, it's take your time, live in those moments, figure them out. It's okay.
Mhm.
Obviously, like there's exceptions to that, but I would say for the most part, I did something recently. I filmed something recently that was like, it was a short little scene between me and this guy. It was like a rom com. And the director was like, you guys can take your time.
Mm.
I was like, "Oh, yeah, like, we're on camera now. It's different." Like, you can feel all of those moments. You can feel all the, like, the changes and the shift. And so, I mean, I've loved it. I've loved learning everything. I just feel like it makes me more nuanced and, like, expansive actor, and, like, I can live in all of these different, tempos and vibrations, and it's really, really cool, and I just think it's just helpful for everyone to, like it's like, stretching.
Yeah. Is there anything that's, like, on your heart that you feel we haven't talked about or that you wanna share with the listener?
Just because I feel like we talked a lot about like logistics and like
Yeah.
I did bring up finances and stuff like that. It feels a little cold and hard, even though it is like the truth.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, I once again, I know I kind of said this a little bit before, but if you want to write something or create something, whether it's a film or like a TV or like a stage piece or a painting, oh my god, just do it. Just do it. And yes, maybe it'll be the worst thing in the whole world, but you know what? You did it. And
Yeah.
the worst one's already happened, so the next one will be better.
Exactly.
But just do it, my god, because getting it out there, even when I, like, wrote my thing, even though, like, when I look at the film, I'm like, "Wow, it's, like, kind of different than what I thought when the movie that played in my head."
Mhm.
I was like, it still felt so good to, like, get it out of me, and I feel like I'm, like, really at peace now with, like, the issues that I was dealing with, and it was just
Mhm.
really wonderful. But just do it. You're gonna be fine. It's gonna be great. Just do it.
Yeah. We put so much pressure on result or
Yeah,
end product that, the whole process to even get to that point is part of the journey and potentially
right.
therapeutic and also just, multi-layered for oneself to even just go through creation of something that didn't exist to something that does,
Yeah.
and you do that. That is yours. You did that, whether it's quote unquote good or bad, which is totally
Mhm.
subjective anyway. Like,
It
I love
is.
that as advice. Just we forget that it's just, yeah, putting pen to paper metaphorically or
Mhm.
literally, or, meeting with people and talking about what it is that you want to create and then making it happen. That in
Yeah.
of itself is art.
It is, absolutely. Sometimes it takes an outside person to, like, make you do it,
Yeah.
and, some if you need that, like, get an accountability buddy. I don't
Mhm.
know. Be like,
Yeah.
"Hey, text me, make sure that I'm, like, doing this thing or
Yeah.
dancing or singing or writing or
Yeah.
whatever."
Yeah. I love all of this. Thank you for going on this journey with us.
Yes, of
So, and by
course.
us, I mean myself, but I say us as this community that I feel like I'm like talking to in a hypothetical space.
The
So thank
empowered
you.
artists.
I
Yes,
know
all of
we're
you.
trying here. For anybody who wants to get in touch with you, work with you, follow along on your journey, what is the best way within your own boundaries for people to respectfully reach out to you?
Oh, please feel free to DM me on Instagram. I'm addicted to it, so I'll be on there. Um, it's sad, but it's true.
Yeah.
But I put a lot of I really like to like put a lot of myself out there. I don't know, it makes me feel good. But it's at Steph Hogan Logan 1H. Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah, it will be in the show notes for sure.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much for being here. And it's always so good to see your
Of
face.
course. Thank you for having me. Honestly, I'm truly honored. I love it. I also adore podcasts. I love this type of podcast and I love you. So it's like
Yeah,
the best of all the
I love it.
worlds.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Of course. I love you.